mean by
Yeah,
mind?
the thing you're pointing to, that body, that's just an entity, and it's the entity that has a mind. And when I say it has a mind, I just mean before that thing was walking through the world, and that thing is where, this person resided. If you want to think about their body that way, if you want to think about the body as just the place where persons reside, then the body there is just the sort of entity that has a mind.
Wait, so
If you don't want to talk about, does that make sense?
so
I think this is I think this way captures the way most people think about people anyways.
so like I take a mind to be a collection of mental states. Obviously, you disagree with that. Do you
No,
have?
I don't disagree with that. Look, I'm not saying their mind is currently working. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm saying that they are the sort of being that has a mind. And that's just to say that entity laying on the bed, that body, is a person. And when I say it's a person, all I mean is before they went into a coma, they're a person. And unless there's some, serious like ontological change with them, then that thing is just still a person.
Do you think dead people are persons?
No, because it's pretty obvious that there's a serious ontological change when someone dies, right? One, if you stipulate that, they're never going to come back to life, right? Then it's like, okay, well, one, their mind's never going to be active again. And so that's just what it means to say a person's dead for me. It's just that, their mind will never be active again. That's the first thing. And the second thing is just that, with the fetus, to me, unless I'm misunderstanding the question, but to me, with the fetus, it's not the sort of thing that ever had, right? It's not the sort of thing that ever had a mind, right? In the future, that thing will have a mind. That's true. Depending on what stage it's in. Well, actually, yeah, that's fine. If this helps it make sense for you, when I talk about things that have minds, I'm just talking about organisms.
No, I understand.
Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
My issue is that it's for me. I just take maybe I'll just say I think a necessary condition for having a mind is just having mental states. Obviously, you disagree with that, so I'm just so confused on what a mind could be if not.
Yeah. A necessary condition
I'm
is.
gonna have to drop and then come back up. By the way.
Yeah, that's fine.
Go check a text message.
Yeah. So you're saying a necessary condition of something that has a mind is that you're something that has mental states. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the sort of thing that has mental states. They're just dormant.
Oh, so you want to say that a coma, like someone who does not have sentience, has mental states?
When it depends on what you mean by has mental states. Do you mean that organism is the sort of thing that had mental states and will have them in the future? Yeah.
No, I mean it currently has mental states.
I guess the question is, I'm not that familiar with comas. Do they have anything going on in their head?
We could just stipulate that it's not the case they do.
Yeah, if no, then do they have active mental states? Yeah, no.
But so you're saying that they have a mind despite not having active mental states. So is that correct?
It's to say that the body is the way I identify the person, and the person just is the mind. So that body has a mind until I have reason to believe that the mind's gone. And all that means to say the mind is gone is it'll just never come back. I mean,
yeah. So I just take when someone says that a body doesn't have active mental states, I just take the implication of that to be the body doesn't have a mind.
Yeah, so we just talk about it differently then, because I don't talk about it that way. I mean, this is, mostly informed just by my intuitions about people and stuff, but I mean, that is exactly how I think about people. If you were to go into a coma, I would just point at your body and say, yeah, there's no active mental states, there's no active mind, but that thing on the table is a person, it's Leo. I know it's Leo because that's just where Leo resided, right?
Wait, what is me? Is the organism me? Like what?
No, I just think people are minds, but minds reside in bodies, at least all the minds I've seen.
Wait, so would you point to my brain and say that's me?
No, I don't take a strong view on whether the mind is... So I think the mind is emergent from the brain. I don't think they're identical, no. Now, whether I am a physicalist, I'm not convinced of that, but I don't think the brain is identical to the mind. I think the brain is emergent, or I think the mind's emergent from the brain.
Do you take the mind to be a part of the brain?
No, it's no one part. It's just sort of, yeah, there's no part you can point to and say that's the mind. No.
Could you point to a bunch of different parts and say the conjunction of this is the mind?
No, you'd point to a bunch of parts and say, there's a sort of higher order property there, and that's the mind. And all of these parts come into conjunction, and then the mind emerges from that. But you can't point to the mind, because I don't think about the mind as a physical fact. Now, maybe it's reducible to physical facts, but I can't point to anything like that.
So you don't think a mind is physical?
I mean, like I said, I don't take a strong view on that. Do I talk about minds as being physical? No, not really. But
oh, so they're immaterial?
The way I talk about them, yeah, but I don't take a strong view on whether they're reducible. They might be reducible, but the way I talk about them, no, they're sort of irreducibly immaterial.
Okay, so there's some immaterial property of a coma patient that is the mind.
That's not active. Yeah, that's dormant when they're in a coma.
And it's immaterial property.
Well, if you want to think about it that way, the view doesn't commit me to that, because I could say that, I mean, I could talk about this and say, yeah, it's reducible, and you can point to the brain. I mean, you can be a physicalist and think these sort of emergent properties exist if you talk about them a different way. And so that's what I'm saying. I don't have to take a strong view on that.
Okay.
Because I don't have a strong view on that.
It's hard for me to actually conceptualize what's meant by saying that this entity has a mind. I don't understand that.
It's just to say that that entity had a mind before, and if they wake up, they'll have a mind again.
When you said it had a mind before, what's meant by mind there?
It's just the collection of their memories and their thoughts and their desires and all those things. That's a pretty standard use of mind I'm using there.
I'm not sure how a collection of memories would exist without sentience.
I don't think it does.
So if it's the case that it has a mind before sentience and after sentience, I'm not sure. Wait, is there an equivocation?
Wait, did you say after sentience?
Sorry. When someone's non-sentient, I don't take it to be the case they have memories.
If you mean, is there someone to point to who has memories right now, like actively? No, there's nobody like that. But there's an organism I can point to and say that's the sort of organism that
had memories.
And now all that is to say is that that's how I know it's a rights bearer. That's all I'm saying there. I'm not making any sort of stronger claim. All I'm saying is that's how I know that's a rights bearer, is because that entity had rights before. It's the sort of entity that had a mind. And yeah, the mind is dormant, but I don't want to say that the person is like gone in some way, because because I mean, it's just sort of, think about it this way. You know, what if you sort of shut off for like an hour and then you came back? I mean, I just think you were dormant. I don't think like there's a serious sort of like change in your status there. I just think you were dormant.
Wait,
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask. Wait, so you do affirm the proposition that the non-sentient coma patient has a mind in the present, correct?
Has a mind in the present. I want to say something. I'm not sure I would affirm that. Depends on what you mean. What I would affirm is something like that's a minded entity. That's what I would say. Is that's a minded entity. But the fetus is not a minded entity.
When you say it's a minded entity, you're just saying it had a mind in the present.
It's the sort of thing that a mind resided in.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, and then a symmetry breaker wouldn't be a mind. It might just be it might be a past mind.
Sure, past or present.
Let's say you look at a dead person, you would say that's not a mind bearer. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I would say they were a mind bearer, and they're no longer the sort of thing that can bear a mind.
Oh, well then I guess, yeah, I mean, I'm not really moved by this distinction. If you're just going to say that one had a mind in the past and one didn't, I'm not sure why that'd be relevant.
Because do you think that a necessary property being a rights bearer is that you have to be a person?
What's meant by person? It depends on what you mean by person, but probably not.
Okay, then that's the disagreement.
I don't think that coma patients are people, but I think, or at least some coma patients aren't people, but I still take it to be the case that they're rights bearers.
Yeah, they're people in the way I'm using the term, which is just this stuff I explained there.
Wait, you just take a person to be someone who had a mind in the past?
No, I just point to the body and say that's the sort of entity that still has the personhood in the relevant sense.
Oh, so you think a personhood's a property of an organism? Okay. And when you say
Yeah, all the ones I've seen, yeah.
when you say an organism says wait, sorry, when you say that an organism has the property of personhood, you're just saying this organism has the property of past experience or past mind?
Yeah, or present.
Oh, yeah, I'm not, yeah, I mean, I don't really take that view of personhood.
Okay, so look, it seems like the disagreement is just that you think that non-persons can have rights. I don't. That was
No,
what I was trying to motivate there.
wait,
Is
but just to be
that
clear, under my semantics, you also think non-persons can have rights.
okay? So what do you mean by persons there?
Yeah, by person, I just mean someone who's actively experiencing things.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So the question is, okay, I'll tell you a certain type of person, and the type of person is one who's never experienced anything. Do you think that's the sort of thing that can bear rights?
Sorry, could you ask that again?
Yeah, an entity that's never experienced anything, is that the sort of entity? So it's like on your view, a special sort of person. Can they be a rights bearer?
Yeah. If they
Yeah.
have
Okay, that's just the disagreement. Is I don't think that's true.
yeah. So you want to say, yeah. So you want to say that the symmetry breaker is past experience, right? Between a pre-sentient fetal brain and a coma patient's brain. You want to say
If that's how you want to think about it, yeah. The distinction for me is just that one is a rights bearer and one's not. And the reason I know one's a rights bearer is because one has a mind, or one's the sort of thing that has had a mind or can have a mind, that sort of thing. So maybe, yeah, if it makes sense for you to say that the distinction is sort of past personhood, then yeah, sure.
okay, past personhood. Yeah. So I guess the question is just why is past personhood the type of thing that is like necessary for rights?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't really talk about rights. So it's sort of hard to
Okay, that's fine.
reduce my concept, but
Moral consideration.
well,
I don't really know the difference between those two terms.
yeah, I just talk about rights when other people talk about them. But the reason I think that non-persons have rights in the way other people talk about them, and when I try to talk about them that way, is just because, I mean, one, I have no intuition to ever give any non-person rights, like the sort of thing that's never had personhood. I have no intuition that I would want to give that thing rights. I've never, well,
I'm sure you would. I'm sure, like, if I were to say, there's like hypothetically speaking, there's like this physical brain, and in 1 second, this physical brain is going to experience like a ton of pleasure, not by virtue of any physical change, but by virtue of acquiring an immaterial property. I'm sure you would say that that brain has rights.
no.
Oh, really?
No, I don't. No, I would say something like, yeah, I think it'd be cool if you. Well, no, okay. If it's only going to experience pleasure, maybe I'd say it'd be cool if you let it come into existence. But other than that, no, I don't think you're doing anything wrong by not allowing it to come into existence.
I mean, I obviously disagree with that. I think that's
Yeah.
a pretty strong intuition pump, but I don't know, maybe it's
Yeah,
not.
it seems like we just have fundamental disagreements there.
But yeah, I mean, I really am not moved by this past sentient stuff.
Yeah, the question I was just going to ask is, this argument, it sort of seems like it just kicks the can down the road because we're just having the conversation that people always have, which is just, it's just the sentience debate. So I don't know if that thought experiment does anything,
Yeah,
except for maybe
yeah,
disambiguates what the debate's about.
Yeah, it might not. It's just probably the strongest. It's probably like if it was the case that you did value non-persons, or sorry, individuals that only have future experience, this would be the first entity that you would value, presumably.
Yeah, well, the thing I was worried about, I don't know if that inference is a valid inference to say that, okay, we have this coma patient, to say if this is the sort of thing that has rights now, then it follows that the presentient fetus is the sort of thing that has rights.
Absent a symmetry breaker, yeah.
Yeah, okay, but then you're just saying something trivial. So
Yeah,
I was
of course.
going to ask, are you, okay,
The challenge
okay,
is
so
just
that's
for
what
the
you're doing.
pro-choicer to give a symmetry breaker.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what I
And then they
was
might
trying
say,
to get at.
yeah, they might say what you said, like past sentience, and then I'm not really moved by past sentience.
Yeah, okay.
I just think
yeah.
it just seems like an extra commitment. Like I prefer the more parsimonious view, I guess. I'm not sure what it explains. Might be what it explains.
And when you say parsimonious, what's more parsimonious about your view? You mean explaining your intuitions or something? Like in a
Oh,
simpler
sorry.
way?
Yeah, I was just asking. I'm not sure, like, what explanatory power positing the past sentience actually has.
What's I'm not pausing any entity that wasn't already there or anything. I don't think that
So,
affects parsimony at all.
wait, like, if I were to say that X is sufficient for rights, and then you were to say that X, the conjunction of X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, is sufficient for rights, I think it's clear that one view is more parsimonious.
Well, it's not like that. It's more like saying you're saying X is necessary for rights, and I'm saying Y is necessary for rights. They're just different concepts. It's not like
But
yours is a simpler concept, unless you're saying
it
for
is
you sentience, or sorry, what's the property for you?
just future. Yours is past sentience in conjunction with future sentience, right? For one of your sufficient conditions. Like
Well,
the sufficient condition that explains why a coma patient has rights under your view, a conjunction of past and future, and then the condition that I give is just future. So it seems like there's some.
yeah, I don't think. Okay, yeah, I don't think that's doing anything about parsimony there. I don't think that does much of anything.
Wait, but like presumably, we're both committed to future sentience being the type of thing that contributes to rights. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But then you're just adding this extra entity, and it doesn't seem like it does anything.
yeah, but the issue is parsimony is only an issue when they have equal explanatory power. But our views don't have equal explanatory power because they seek to explain different intuitions. So parsimony is not an issue.
They seek to explain the intuition that a coma patient has rights.
Well, they seek to explain this sort of set of intuitions. Your view does not explain my intuitions, and my view doesn't explain yours. So there's no point in us talking about parsimony because
Generally, there's a general intuition that a coma patient has rights, and the question is, by virtue of what does a coma patient have rights? And all I'm saying is by future sentience, and what you're saying is future, but you also have to have past there. Well, the question is, what's the past even doing? Like, what's the need to incorporate that?
well, are you asking what's the need to incorporate that condition when I talk about rights bearers?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because baked into my concept of rights bearing is that you have to be a person. And so that has to get explained. Now, that's not in your concept, so you don't have to explain it, but I do.
Wait, but just to be clear, by person, you just mean past sentience. So,
By person, I just mean mind.
but by mind, but again, by mind, you said that it could just be, so you said a past mind, I thought.
Well, past or present, yeah.
Yeah, so a person could just be someone with a past mind. So all you're saying is that someone with a past mind has
Well, it's not true that any entity with a past mind is a person. Because, I mean, dead people are entities with past minds.
Yeah, they'd have to have future. I understand.
Yeah, future or present.
Yeah. But the issues that you're saying, the reason why we should value an individual with past and future is because they're a person. But by person, you just mean past and future. So it seems like you're just saying we should value X because of X.
I'm not saying the reason why we should value, maybe it's not clear what I'm doing. What I'm doing there is explaining to you my concept of rights bearers.
Yeah, your concept of rights bearers is contingent on personhood.
Yeah.
But by personhood, you just mean an entity that has past and future sentience. That's all you mean by personhood. So when you say,
Yeah, maybe, I'm not sure about that, but yeah, sure, you could just say that.
well, so the issue is that when you say that, the reason why, when you say that you have to kind of, accommodate this intuition, well, this intuition seems pretty problematic because the intuition is just the exact same thing as the thesis that you give to explain the intuition.
No, that's not true at all. Wait, okay, the first thing is you're saying the intuition is problematic. I'm not sure that.
Or maybe
Matt,
that was.
I'm not sure
what I
that's
meant
like
to
a
say was
helpful
just
thing to
that
say here.
the intuition and the thesis are identical.
Okay, and what do you think the intuition is?
The intuition is that personhood implies rights.
Well, that's not the intuition. The intuition isn't that personhood implies rights. The intuition is that to have rights, you have to be person.
Oh, sorry. The intuition is that personhood is necessary for rights.
Yeah, the intuition is that in my concept of rights,
Yep.
all rights bearers are persons.
And then the thesis that you give to explain that is just saying that. Sorry. Yeah. Then the thing that you use to explain that is just saying that an entity with past or future mind would have rights.
No, okay, yeah. So that's the distinction. So I'm not saying that to explain to you my concept of rights bearing. I'm using that to explain to you why, in your example, one's a rights bearer and one's not.
Okay, yeah, like, so my issue is that basically you're saying that personhood is necessary for rights, but by personhood you just mean past and future sentience, which I mean I do think that's odd. And then
Technically, that's not true. Technically, you could be a rights bearer and only have present and past.
oh, sorry, yeah, that's true. But yeah, I mean the point is just that you want to say that that's what personhood is, and then you want to say, well, personhood is necessary for rights, but I'm not really convinced that personhood would be necessary for rights if you're using personhood in that sense.
Personhood in the sense of, yeah, I'm not sure you're sort of exhaustively explaining my concept of person there. But I don't know, we might be talking past each other because I'm not sure what you think the issue is.
Okay, maybe I could explain it better. So I'm unconvinced. I'm unconvinced that it's a necessary condition for rights is having past and future conjunct with a disjunct of present, right?
Yeah, so you're just saying that in your concept of rights, it's not necessary to be person.
So I'm unconvinced of the necessary condition.
Yeah.
And then the way in which, and then the evidence you kind of give for the necessary condition is invoking personhood, but personhood is just reducible to the exact same property you listed.
Well, okay, maybe that's the misunderstanding. I'm not trying to motivate you to my view. I'm explaining my view to you. I wasn't trying to motivate why you should think that personhood is a necessary property of rights bearers. I was explaining to you my concept of rights bearers.
Like when I asked for a symmetry breaker between the two, I was just asking.
Yeah, the symmetry breaker is one's a rights bearer and one's not, on my concept of rights bearer.
I was asking why the symmetry breaker is such that one has rights and one doesn't.
Yeah, it's just that one has a mind and one doesn't, or one's a sort of minded thing and one's not.
Yeah, but like the issue with that is that that's just the same thing I was unconvinced with to start.
When you say your concept, do you mean your theory of what it is to be a rights bearer? I'm a little confused at what you're saying.
I guess I just mean the way I use the term. If you asked me to explain,
I mean, do you think Leo is disagreeing that you use the term that way? I think he's trying to get at a more substantive dispute between you, which is that there's some ethical data which consists in all these intuitions, and that your concept is not going to get the right extension with respect to what these intuitions demand.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So like he's saying we have these ethical intuitions, right? And they, we intuit, like, for example, in this case, we should do X. In this case, we should do Y. And he's saying, well, the way in which you use the terms, it can make sense of all of that. But the way in which I use the terms also makes sense of that. And the way I use the terms involves less conditions. And then he's just saying that if you cash out ways in which we use terms in terms of theories, then taken as a competing theory, my theory is better. I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah. My question, though, is it seems like we want to say different things about, it seems like we have different data to explain, though. That's the thing I'm not understanding.
What's the difference in data?
Our intuitions about rights, or intuitions about the sort of example at hand.
I guess I could.
Well, that's his whole point when he asks you, what is the past sentience doing there? Like, give a case in which your intuition differs, right? And see whether or not your intuition has it said that you need past sentience. Because if you can give such a case, then it is necessary. It's not just going to be the superfluous condition on your theory. So that's what he's asking for.
Sorry, a case like what? What would the case be?
I don't know. Like, for example, what motivates future sentience? Like, here's a case. Imagine somebody was not sentient in the present, right? Could I but they will be sentient in like 5 minutes. Can I attack them and brutally defile them and stuff like that? Be like, obviously not. That seems immoral and horrible. What explains that? Well, we might say that you shouldn't do things like that to entities that have future sentience. So, what he's asking for is to give a case
Well, the
like
question
that,
there is,
which gives some explanatory work to past sentience, right?
yeah, but it seemed like earlier that's why I asked a question, or I think he asked a question, and that's why I said, seems like we have a disagreement about what our intuitions are there, because if the entity you're describing has never been sentient, then no, I don't think anything's wrong there. But it seems like Leo thinks there is something wrong.
Well,
So
right.
that's what I
Well,
mean.
think about it like this, right? Like, imagine they're in their first moment of sentience, right?
Mhm.
They are sentient, but never have they been sentient in the past, since it's the first moment
Yeah.
in this temporal chain.
Mhm.
And imagine, right, in the next moment, they're not going to be sentient. And then we move to the next moment. So they have some past sentience.
Mhm.
And then we're going to say, okay, in the third moment, they'll have sentience. We might ask, why is it wrong to do, like, defile this entity or something like that? You can say something like, well, it has sentience in the past, right? And Leo can say something like, it has sentience in the future. Both your conditions explain this type of case, right? You see how they do?
Yeah.
Okay, but it's not as if one of your theories does any more work. Now, I don't know what type of cases Leo has in mind, but what he's asking for you is, well, now we need another case between our two theories, which, future sentience can't accommodate and only past sentience can. Because if you can't give that, you're not going to have the necessary motivation for your theory.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's what he's asking for.
Yeah. I guess I'm just struggling to see what kind of case I'm supposed to be giving.
A case in which an agent having sentience in the past is what determines what you should do.
Yeah.
That's what he's looking for, I think. Because, like, because like, we can kind of show that having future sentience does some work. Like, past sentience alone isn't sufficient. Suppose, for example, that an agent had sentience in the past, right? And then it lost sentience, but it's never going to become sentient again. Does it seem wrong to kill that thing or something like that? No. Like, is it wrong to unplug brain dead patients? No, it's not. Especially if they're not going to have it in the future. So past sentience alone is not sufficient. Now, you might make a conjunction, right, of future and past, but notice future can do the same explanatory work as the conjunction, right, which is what Leo's pointing out. So to show that it doesn't do the same explanatory work as the conjunction, you're going to have to give a case which only the conjunction can explain, and the single condition of future sentience can't explain. And that's what Leo's asking for, just that type of case.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. I guess I'd have to think about it. I don't have that case offhand. Yeah. Okay, but one thing I'm confused about now, because me and Leo do have different intuitions about these cases, right? You're not disagreeing with that?
I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's what I'm struggling with is, seems like whatever case I offer, he's not going to be motivated by. So you're saying...
well, here's the thing. That might be true, but, like, what's relevant is not whether or not you have different ethical intuitions in any case. It's whether or not you can give a case in which it seems to you that this conjunction explains the wrongness of doing some act that the single conjunct of future sentience would not be sufficient to explain. If you have different intuitions, that's the end of the dispute right there. Maybe he can give some inductive case as to why he should trust his intuitions over yours. Both of you can be justified, but that's the second step. First, you got to give the case.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I'm just sort of having maybe I'm just not understanding, but the thing I'm confused about is okay, the view for me is past and future, or present and past, or present and future.
Right? Oh, I know. I made the view with Eric years ago.
Okay, so but for him it's just future, right? That's the only necessary one, right? Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't think so. You should do that.
I think
you definitely should do that, Leo. You should do present or future.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
'Cause you
present
could
or future.
you could have it in the present and not have in the future. Doesn't mean I can blow your head off in that instant. But
Yeah.
yeah, I know the views. I made this taxonomy. I did this.
Yeah, so the case we need would be what a case where we want to explain why it's wrong to do the action, and Leo's future or present, it doesn't explain why it's wrong, but mine does.
Wait, which case? Sorry, I wasn't listening.
No, it's okay. So the case we want is a case where me and Leo both
Oh, I
want-
thought you were giving a case. Yes,
sorry.
the case we want is where the conjunction explains it, but his theory doesn't. We just want one where your set of conditions explain it and his doesn't. And what I mean by I made the view, I mean that Eric and I are the people that came up with these views like 3 years ago and introduced them to this particular community. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
For the comments.
Okay, but this is the question. Maybe this was what I was confused about. There can be pieces of data that his view explains that mine doesn't seem to explain, right? Like, for example, when he looks at the fetus and he says it's wrong, I don't want to say it's wrong. My view doesn't have to accommodate that, right? That's not what you're saying.
Wait, say that one last time. I was distracted by this big fat. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just that. So when he looks at, so there's a case where the future sentient being, he wants to say it's wrong to harm them, and I don't. And so,
right,
my view doesn't have to accommodate that, right? Because that's the thing I'm confused
your view
about.
would judge in those type of cases it's not wrong because they don't have past sentience. But I mean, I don't think you can really appeal to those cases because that's what's in dispute, right? Like those cases, really, the majority of them, and pretty much every real world instance, if not, I actually think every real world instance of that is just an abortion. So, we're trying to come up with theories to, judge whether or not we are, right in saying that it's wrong in those cases. Of course, your theory judges it isn't. That's why your view is a pro-choice view. And Leo judges it is, and that's why his view is a pro-life view. But you have to appeal to a case that isn't in question like that.
Yeah. Okay, this is my issue is it seems like I can't think of a novel case that would motivate him because it seems like the cases that we talk about
to motivate yours or his? Sorry,
his to motivate him to mine. Sorry, that's what I mean.
To motivate. So you're just saying you just can't think of a case that supports your view over his.
Well, a case that he hasn't already heard and he thinks it does anything. That's the issue.
I mean, just give a case maybe that he has heard and he could debate about it. I mean.
Oh, okay. I figured because it seems like what he was saying was.
I mean, I don't know of any cases actually, except like ones that can be disputed, I guess.
Yeah.
But maybe those are the ones you have in mind, like the robot case, stuff like that. Or
yeah, I think that. I mean, he's been having this debate for a while, so I just don't think I can think of a novel case that would do anything for him. That's the issue.
Well, you should still try and meet his demand. Like, so I don't think he is asking for a case that's going to motivate him. I think he's just asking for a case, and then you can do the debate about your intuition. So you can just go ahead and give whatever case you think works.
Yeah. Okay. A case where. The condition of present or future that doesn't explain the case, but the future or past, or the future and past, or present and past explain, or present and future.
Right. You're just going to need a case that the conjunction of past and future and a greater disjunction with the present explains that the simple disjunction of present and future cannot explain.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the embryo rescue case kind of, do that?
Yeah. If we were to
I don't think so.
I can offer some type of diffusal there. Like, look, let's say we stipulated that these embryos have.
Was it conditioned for rights or what?
Yeah, just
if Leo's just giving, I don't think so. Leo can restrict his view however he wants. Like, for example, suppose, I don't know Leo's view, but suppose he only believes in negative rights, right? Well, if none of these agents have positive rights, it's not going to suggest, I don't say what rights would be violated in that case.
I'm not sure about rights violations, but I think I was saying like we have stronger intuitions that, we would save one over the other. So I mean, that's more like motivating for the past sentience condition.
With respect to rights or with respect to moral value? What?
Yeah, it's probably more of a value thing. I'm not sure I'm not sure you could say anything about rights there.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know, Leo. You're trying to give a theory of rights, no? Or are you trying to just give one a broad moral value?
Yeah, just rights.
You're right. So I don't think that would be a counterexample.
Yo, Leo,
But-
Leo.
Wait, Jesse, chill. I've had my hand up for like 45
This way.
minutes.
But I think if
I can't
Agent
see your
wanted
hand.
to, he could expand the view such as just about moral value, but then I think it's just obviously wrong. Like, here's kind of the dilemma for this type of move, Jacob. Like, suppose he makes it that being necessary and sufficient for having moral value is having these type of properties, which is obviously false, right? There are things that have moral value that do not have sentience at all. Like, suppose I really like a rock, and if you break the rock, I'm going to be really, really sad. Well, that has moral value insofar as my pain matters, right? But it doesn't meet any of those conditions. Maybe you could restrict it to like intrinsic moral value, but I still don't think that would work, because you might want to say things like pleasure has intrinsic moral value, or not violating rights has intrinsic moral value. And none of these type of entities, moral entities or psychological entities themselves, meet any of those conditions.
Well,
How is that moral value? What do you mean?
there's sort of a precedent. Sorry, go ahead.
No, don't let Jesse go. You go ahead, Jacob.
Bro, Leo, bro. You
Wait.
should value the preferences of something that can experience. I'm just saying. Anyways, hold on. Glock, debate me on if trans women are women. See you guys. You guys have a good debate. Glock, stop running.
Yeah,
Come on,
Glock, stop
Jesse.
running. Stop running.
Oh my God, this guy.
Okay, go ahead, Jacob.
There's sort of a precedent for pointing and laughing at people who get sad over broken rocks, but I mean, you could get sad over that.
Maybe it's your favorite toy. I mean, we don't laugh at little children when their toys get broken, do we?
Children aren't really agents to the same extent that I am.
But I don't think their pain matters any less. I mean, what? Do you think their pain is any less morally valuable? Or disvaluable, I mean? And their pleasure is any less morally valuable?
That's fair. Yeah. Okay. Their pain is important still, but
And even if it wasn't equally valuable, I mean, suppose there are difference in value. We want a set of necessary and sufficient conditions for all value, not just higher value, if you will, or something, whatever you're trying to identify.
So, Evan, the case you think is a candidate here is, you said the robot case, or are you talking about the one where there's a being who is sentient in the past and now they're not sentient and they won't be in the future? But you're talking about that person?
No,
Or that
I
robot?
mean, no. I'm talking about the case in which somebody is building a robot or whatever, and they have it hooked up to machines such that in 9 months it's going to be sentient, right? Suppose I unplugged it because I was tired. I didn't want it to be there. I was like, I don't want to use these resources. I want to get rid of it, right?
Yeah.
The question is, would it be wrong? To a lot of people, it seems like it wouldn't be wrong, right?
Oh,
Okay.
I understand that. So that's the case where he wants to say it's wrong, but that's an issue for the view. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying, yes, I'm saying his
Yeah.
view would judge that it's wrong. Your view would judge it's permissible.
Yeah. Okay. I was thinking.
To
the
some,
opposite.
it would
Yeah.
seem like it's permissible.
Yeah.
If it is permissible, that's something only your view can explain.
Yeah.
And so now we have some justification for adding on the past sentience condition.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So,
Right.
Leo, what do you think about that case?
Well, I think that if you stipulated that robot had like a millisecond of past experience, I don't think the intuition would change there.
Well, they didn't, right?
Yeah, but no, if we stipulated that it did, presumably we would still have the same intuition.
If we stipulate it.
So then
Wait, Leo, is this really your way of diffusing it?
I don't see the issue with that way.
Well,
Well,
I
then-
guess the issue is probably just that you still have to explain this case. So you can talk about
Wait,
if you
but there's
stipulate
just-
something out, but this case is still a question.
This is just to say that the intuition clearly has nothing to do with past sentience. The intuition has everything to do with the fact that it's a robot. And generally speaking, we don't value robots. So when we put a robot in a hypothetical and we have our
I see the debunking move here. Okay.
yeah, and then we have like our normal conceptualization of robots. We're like, what? Why would this thing have rights? But I think it's just the case that this intuition is kind of, I mean, I don't know, misguided in a sense.
Okay, maybe I guess you could think of, yeah. Okay, then maybe think about, I don't know, sort of humanoid robot that, I mean, it's almost identical to a human. I mean, and people wouldn't have the intuition you're talking about there. They wouldn't be like, oh, it's just a robot.
Wait, like if there is some being that looked exactly like me and it was going to have sentience in like 10 seconds, they wouldn't have the intuition that would be wrong to like unalive it?
I think we could extend it out as far as possible, I think. So we could say, yeah, they'll have sentience in 6 months. And your view wants to say that's wrong because they meet the conditions, right?
Yeah, but it would be wrong for the same reasons it would be wrong if it had like 1 second if it was 1 second away. But presumably most people would say that it's wrong to unalive it when it's 1 second away. And then an implication of that is just that it's wrong to unalive it when it's any second away.
Are you saying that, yeah, it is wrong?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it seems like then, it seems like that's the issue is I don't think anybody wants to say that's wrong.
Yeah, but look, if you were to stipulate that this humanoid robot had like 10 seconds of prior experience and then shut off, and then like in 1,000 years it's going to wake up again, do you think people are going to have the intuition that that thing has rights?
Maybe, but that's not the one we're talking about, right?
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I low-key do have the intuition that it does have rights.
Yeah.
And I mainly had the intuition because I think shutting it off is wrong. Like that's a rights violation. And then from there, it has moral standing and moral demands come from it, no matter how little it was sentient or whatever.
Well,
What if
maybe
it was just like a millisecond of experience in the past, and then it's going to have another millisecond in the future, and there's like a temporal gap of like 100 years. Do you think that thing would have rights?
Yeah, I don't think. I think the type of move being made with the time stuff is really insignificant. I'm not going to lie.
Okay, but Leo, I don't know if that does anything in the way of responding to the case. Talking about if we stipulate that it did have, right?
Well, he's not responding to the case. There's some difference in intuition between you and Leo. Mm-hmm. Now what he's doing is a move above that, which is we have reasons not to trust your intuition, but to trust his intuition. And so not only do you want your theories to explain data, right? In the case of intuitions, you want your theory to be in line with reliable intuitions, not unreliable intuitions, obviously. So if he's saying that your intuition is unreliable and his intuition is, and his view can explain the reliable intuition, and your view can only explain the unreliable intuition, then we should prefer his to yours.
Yeah. Okay, so we're saying, okay, explain this intuition, your view doesn't. And he's saying, well, I don't want to explain that intuition because that intuition's the false intuition, and I can explain why, this is the correct one. So, okay, so Leo, so how do you explain that that's not the right intuition?
Yeah. So a good thing to do is to stipulate the properties that you view as necessary. So all we're going to have to do to this robot is give it like 5 seconds of past sentience. Presumably, we're not going to have the intuition there that it has rights. So then a better explanation...
Well, I don't agree. I mean, I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not... I mean, that's probably just by virtue of you holding the position that it's a necessary condition.
I don't think... I mean, my view is informed by my intuitions there. I don't think the intuitions are informed by the view.
Even if it was like a millisecond of past sentience?
I mean, yeah, is like a micro penny valuable? Yeah, I mean, it's like valuable as a micro penny. It's very little, but it's still the sort of thing that's valuable.
I mean, we could just compare the plausibility of the two premises. So the first premise would just, premise one would just be that it is the case that the robot without past sentience has rights. And then the second premise is that it's the case that the robot with 1 millisecond of past sentience has rights, but not the case the robot with no past sentience has rights. And it seems like the second premise there is less plausible than the first one.
Why is that?
Because there's really not much of a symmetry breaker between the two cases.
There's
like a millisecond of past experience doesn't seem to be very motivating.
it almost seems it seems like you're either like just kicking the can down the road, like that doesn't do anything, or well, it's probably that. I was gonna say maybe it almost sounds like it's begging the question, but
So you have to commit to saying that it actually is the case that one of these beings has rights and one of these beings doesn't have rights.
yeah.
And I'm just saying that they both have rights, and because of how similar the two beings are, it's probably
Well, Nick, you say one doesn't, right? You say the one with the millisecond doesn't.
no, I say it does.
Oh, sorry. Okay,
I'm saying
you
that
say it does.
The intuition we're referring to doesn't, but that's just good reason to doubt that it's a very good intuition. Right?
Sorry. Now I'm confused because you're saying that the one with the millisecond does, but I thought you said that's a ridiculous intuition to have.
So there's like, so my intuition says that both have rights. Your intuition says that one have rights, and then in my opinion, it seems more odd to say that one.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, you're saying that my combination of intuitions is less plausibly correct than your combination.
Yeah.
Okay, but the first thing is you do think it's ridiculous, or when you said it was ridiculous, do you mean it's ridiculous to have that intuition when you don't have the intuition about the future one? That's what you're saying.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, the case where they have a millisecond and you thought that was a ridiculous intuition to have, you didn't think that was a ridiculous intuition. Generally, you thought that was ridiculous to hold in conjunction with the intuition that the future one didn't, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, I could give one quick motivation just for the just having future sentience being sufficient. Imagine this robot wakes up and then says, "Oh my God, I'm so happy I'm alive. I missed you," and points to a bunch of people and says, "I missed you." Even if it's the case that like these memories are false, obviously we kind of want that state of affairs to occur.
Well, I don't know if that does anything in the way of telling me if it was wrong. Well, I don't know if that does much. I think that does something different there.
Might be wrong.
It sounds like they're presently. Sorry, doesn't it sound like they're presently sentient if they're espousing that kind of stuff?
Yeah, but we can stipulate it's just not the case. They have quasi memories, so not real memories.
What are quasi memories?
They're memories that, they're like types of someone thinking that they have past experiences or remembering past experiences, but these past experiences never actually happened.
So they're just misremembering, you mean?
Yeah. So we can say that once they have sentience, they now have these properties of like magic.
Wait. I mean, I wonder this, Leo. Imagine, you have this robot and it only has, a millisecond of experience, right? But in that millisecond, they, so to speak, experience a whole lifetime or something like that, right? Do you think like the time is what's morally significant there, or what?
No, not necessarily.
Do you think that if it didn't have sentience for 100 years, we shouldn't, or it'd be permissible to like beat it up, or?
No, I don't think the time is relevant, but it seems like most people do.
Okay, well, so I'm just trying to get clear. Is it a dispute between most intuitions and then agents' intuitions, or you and whatever, and him?
Yeah, I might be unclear on that as well.
Yeah, that's the thing I don't get, Leo, because look, even if I agree that that's most people's intuition, it seems like what we're trying to get at here is what the correct intuition about, what's wrong and right is, and the common folk might be wrong about that.
Okay, yeah. So let's say,
especially because they haven't reflected on these things.
Yeah, they definitely haven't.
Like if someone had the intuition that it would be really wrong to stop this robot from experiencing all that joy, that seems like a pretty good intuition to have. I mean, that seems pretty plausible. It'd be wrong to stop it from having all these really good experiences. Right, and then you want to say that that's only true if they had a millisecond of sentience in the past. Well, okay. Well, I mean, I'm not sure why that would be the case.
Okay, so that you're describing the robot after they wake up, and you're saying, okay, in my view, well, I don't think that does what you think it's doing there, though, because can you explain what my view isn't accounting for there? Because I think I agree with the thing you just said. That's what I don't understand what you think my view isn't doing there.
Sorry, wait, you agree with what?
I might agree with the thing you said about the robot wakes up and they do that, and that's the state of affairs we might want to bring about. I agree with that, and I think I agree. Even most people would think that.
Okay. Yeah.
So then, what were you saying was the issue?
Well, the issue is that you don't want to say that this robot has rights.
In that case, I do though. That's what
No,
I
but
don't
it's
understand.
stipulated they didn't actually have past sentience and that the memories were fake.
Oh, I don't even know what that. The memories were fake. I mean, are they having a qualitative experience? Because then no, it's not wrong.
They're going to have the qualitative experience of seeing like their whole family again, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my God, my son came up here. Hey, son.
What's up, Unc?
Wait, Hyde, you have me debating. I don't know who gave this. You have me debating Synth? Which one? Wait, Loki, do you have my disc? Send those to me. Because I've won every debate with Synth. Please send those to me. And I've also won every debate with this Liam guy.
I'm lying.
Name one debate I've lost to you. It's actually not even funny how I've won every single debate with you.
Liar, bro. Why?
Epistemic nihilism? When the fuck did I debate Synth though? Oh, wait, you have that wait, that's from years ago. How do you have that? What the hell?
Did somebody have the debate where I was debating Santa over whether they won a debate and I made them fluster?
Yeah. Okay. So Leo, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. My son came up here. I had to tell him that I own him.
All right.
Yeah, so Agent, the idea is that most people probably think it would be wrong to stop the robot from having the experience of like meeting their whole family again. And this experience would be qualitatively identical to a coma patient waking up and seeing their entire family again.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but the question isn't whether most people are there, right? The question is whether it's really wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it seems kind of weird to say that, oh, yeah, it's totally fine to stop this amazing experience from happening. But if it had this like very minimal amount of past experience, well, yeah, then it would be wrong.
I don't see how that's weird at all.
Well, like, what is that past experience even doing there?
Makes it the sort of thing that bears.
Well, I mean,
It makes it the sort of thing that you can't do certain actions against.
obviously, I'm convinced of that because I don't think that'd be necessary.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe you're unconvinced because your method of philosophizing is like soul searching.
Shut the fuck up, Liam.
Regular, I feel this way.
Leo, I still have a question for you before you guys.
It's funny, Liam, because what we're actually doing is we're like grasping these abstract objects in a relation.
You're searching your soul.
is it a hard question?
Yeah, okay, pal.
I'm very confused about something that you said. It might not be a hard question.
If it's about philosophy of mind, I probably misspoke. But what is it?
You said something about how. Okay, first I just want to know, like, what is a person under your view?
I take a person to be some type of entity that's experiencing things.
Oh, so they have to be actively experiencing something in order to be a person?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, it's funny because there's a prime counterexample to your theory, and it's this Liam guy here. You think Liam's a fucking person?
You think crabs are people, bro?
Or, well, presumably you could just intensify the level of sentience or whatever.
Bro, I take that as a reductio on your view.
You could just say it's necessary.
I also think the Liam reductio is the most salient one. You think this Liam guy's a fucking person, bro? Hell no.
Well, you could just say it's a necessary condition for sentience, then. You don't have to commit to saying it's...
Yeah, necessary condition for personhood?
Yeah, sorry, for personhood.
Okay, so it's just a condition.
Add a not Liam condition in there, too.
Fuck up.
Sorry, what was
Okay,
that?
I guess I'm just interested in that. Never mind. That was all. I thought that your view on personhood was just an entity that had a mind, which is why.
Yeah,
which is
maybe
why I
there's
was
some
confused.
more like, I don't know, maybe there has to be some type of robustness there.
Fucking no bust in your fucking
more
account.
properties being added to that, I don't know.
Yeah, because you had said something about the coma patient not being a person.
Yeah, that's definitely not a person. It's just a body, in my opinion.
Or what?
Like if it's not
Well-
experiencing, it's just a body that has future sentience.
I mean, even under
Fucking go
even
to
under
sleep.
your
Are you a person, bro?
view, that's what I'm saying,
You
Liam. Like
experiencing-
even under your view, like then people who are in deep sleep without